All right, Walter Isaacson. I waited until the end because I wanted to know if I could ask you 3 questions. Fast? Okay. In this video, we'll hear from Walter Isaacson, who just released his new book, The Biography of Elon Musk. He's a best-selling author of biographies about Leonardo da Vinci, Steve Jobs, Albert Einstein, and now Elon Musk. One reason I was interested in his book is that he got the chance to learn about someone personally while they're still alive and be a fly on the wall in their everyday life. He's done a good job of writing about major figures posthumously, but Walter got to know Elon up close and personal, through the good and bad times. Keep watching this video to learn insights from Walter after spending 2 years shadowing Elon with nothing off limits. Plus, if you want to hear my 3 questions and Walter's answers, stick around. Now, this meeting happened during a book signing in Austin, Texas during the recent Texas Book Fair. Walter says he got interested in writing a book about Elon's life and is fortunate his reputation allows him to approach people easily.
One day, about 2.5 years ago, we had this long conversation, Musk and myself, and I said to him, I don't do books just based on a few interviews. In fact, I don't want to just do 15 or even 20 interviews. I want you to give me 2 years where I get to be by your side whenever I want, morning, noon, and night, nothing excluded. No family dinners excluded, no meetings excluded, no walks in the factory. And he's very much of an automaton. He's like, okay. So then I said, well, here's the other part of the deal. You have no control of the book, and you don't get to read it in advance. He goes, okay. And I think, well, that's weird. So I go and I'm with friends. I went back downstairs. My wife, a few friends are there. We're talking. And suddenly they go, oh, my God, you're doing Elon. I said, what do you mean? He said, well, Elon Musk just tweeted out, Walter's writing my biography. So at that point, I said, well, I'm on for the ride.
The narrative of this book begins, understandably, in South Africa, in his childhood, which is not pretty. There's the part about his dad, but there's also the part about him being bullied at school. And so much of what we now know about Musk, what we've seen play out, you can ultimately breadcrumb, can you not, back to that?
That is the great conceit of biographers, which I hope happens to be true, is that if you start at the beginning in childhood, you understand the rosebuds that cause a person to be whom they are.
Right. Say something about Errol Musk.
So Errol's the dad, and as Evan said, Elon gets beaten up all the time in school because obviously he's socially awkward, to put it mildly. He has 0 friends. He's a little scrawny kid, so they beat him up every day. And at one point he gets pushed down the concrete steps, and his younger brother Kimball is horrified. He gets beaten so badly that Kimball says his face was unrecognizable. And they take him to the hospital for 4 days. The scars from that were so minor compared to the scars from when he gets home. And his father, Errol, makes him stand in front of him for 2 hours almost, while the father says, you're a loser, and you deserved it, and takes aside the kid who beat him up. And all of us have some demons from childhood, even those who grew up in New Orleans, they have a few. But and most of the people I write about have some demons like that, whether it's Leonardo growing up gay and left-handed and illegitimate in a small village and going to Florence. And the question is whether you can harness those demons or they harness you. But Mae Musk, who's Elon's mother, obviously divorced Errol pretty early on, said at the very beginning of my report, and here's what you got to figure out, the danger for Elon is that he becomes his dad.
Here Walter's asked if he believes that Elon Musk is a genius after shadowing him for 2 years.
Yes, and to take the line you quoted, which is, here's the people who are crazy enough to change the world are the ones who do. Right. For those who don't know, that was from Steve Jobs. Indeed. And that describes Steve Jobs, and it describes Elon Musk. And if you want to talk about genius, I think you make a mistake if you equate it with smartness or intelligence. We all know smart people, and they're a dime a dozen. Most don't amount to much. Bill Gates is much smarter, I think, in a conventional sense than Steve Jobs was. But Steve Jobs was more of a genius. So what is it that makes genius different from just being really, really smart? And The main thing is to take Steve Jobs' line at the beginning of the Here's to the Crazy Ones, which is to think different. And people who can be imaginative and think out of the box and have a reality distortion field and just barrel through things are geniuses. I don't think Einstein said I was not the smartest physicist, I was just the most curious and willing to think different.
Right.
That's wrong. He was the smartest physicist of his time. But he was the one willing to say, just because Newton says time marches along second by second, irrespective of how we observe it, Einstein thinks out of the box and goes, how do we know that? How would we measure that time isn't relative? Likewise, Musk always thinks out of the box and questions every assumption, which is why NASA and Boeing cannot get astronauts to the space station and can't get cargo. And the day before yesterday, Musk did his 21st mission to the space station. And the rocket landed upright on a drone ship to be reused. That type of thinking different is what makes him a genius, and ignoring the people who say don't take that risk. When Ford and GM are giving up on electric vehicles in 2008, Musk barrels ahead. When NASA is giving up on going to orbit and ground the space shuttle, he barrels ahead.
Yeah. So I've asked you if he's a genius. Now I want to ask you if you think he's a good person.
Musk, if you're going to be a good person, there are two ways to do it, let me say, just simple. One is you're very kind to the people next to you and around you, and you have a lot of empathy, and you care about them. Another way is to care about the mission, to care about humanity in general, or to care about the enterprise you're engaged in. Einstein was not particularly the nicest, best person to his wives, children, whatever, but he cared about the mission. Same with Steve Jobs, same with Musk. When I asked Steve Jobs the question that Wozniak told me was key, I said, did you have to be so mean? Did you have to be so nasty to people? And he said, you think being nice to people in front of you is a great virtue, but you do it to a fault. He was talking about me, which is, when you ran CNN, or when you just care that, not just that they feel good, but you care that they like you. It's almost selfish. You want their affection. And he says, if you're going to care about the mission, he said, I'm just a middle-class kid. I can't be that way if I'm going to create the world's largest enterprise, Apple. I've got to tell people if they do something that sucks, they suck.
Right.
And Musk said the same thing. He said, people like you define good as being nice to the people around you. I define good as having missions that will help humanity, and I have to run roughshod sometimes to get there.
It's no secret that working for Elon Musk can be a harsh environment. In fact, Walter refers to a scene in his book From Down at Starbase to prove this. He said one late Friday night down at Starbase, Elon Musk was walking from the assembly line to the launch pad, and there were only about 3 or 4 people working on a Friday at 10 p.m. This was a problem and activated what Walter calls demon mode.
And he goes into demon mode. He says, why aren't there more people second this? And poor Andy Krabs, who's in charge, says, well, it's Friday night at 10 p.m. and we don't have any launches scheduled, and so we don't have a full and Musk says, by tomorrow I want 100 people working, then 200 by Sunday. He does a surge, he calls it. And he just reams Andy out. And Andy's a good civil engineer. Eventually, Andy leaves because of that. I am telling this story 2 weeks ago at, excuse the phrase, the Los Angeles Book Festival.
Forgive me.
And afterward, we're doing the signing. It's outside, actually. And I see a tall North Carolina, sweet guy walking up. It's Andy Krabs. I say, hey, what's happening? He said, well, as you know, I left SpaceX. It was driving me to distraction. It drove me crazy. I was getting burned out, and now I'm working at another place. But I realize I have the choice of being burned out or being bored. and I'd rather be burned out. I'm going back to SpaceX.
Amazing. Musk is the kind of person who takes an Andy Krebs in that case back. He does.
Well, yeah, I said, have you talked to Musk? He said, well, I'm a little afraid to, but I talked to Gwen Shotwell, and I'm coming back.
So the other criticism of Musk, or the other observation that can be read as a criticism of Musk as a leader, is that he is not concerned particularly with safety, right? You've heard this. In fact, he has one of the very first things in the algorithm is essentially question every order. If you hear something that comes generically from the safety department, ask whose name that should be attached to. There are no requirements. There are only the laws of physics, right? And the thing about that is that you read every couple of months, well, this thing happened to Tesla, or that thing happened to Twitter. Here's yesterday, Reuters story. SpaceX employees said the company's high injury rates reflect a chaotic workplace where often undertrained and overtired staff routinely skip basic safety procedures as they raced to meet Musk's deadlines for space missions. How would we feel, how should we feel about that aspect of Musk's legacy?
Well,
playing fast and loose with safety of the people who work for him.
Well, that's why we have to feel good that we have regulators, even if he doesn't like them. Then we have OSHA's, and then we have the FAA.
Yeah.
And he does, he's very careful on the safety when it comes to humans being sent into orbit. There's actually a different feel than the push he might do. But at the end of the book, hold up the back cover if you would, that Starship, which most of you know, it'll probably go up in about 3-4 weeks again. But the first thing was in April, and I was in the command room, and at T-minus 14 seconds on that Monday, he shakes his head because there's some leak. He said, 1 second, and cuts it off. But that Thursday, they try to redo it. It gets down to, T-minus a minute. And there's a couple little problems at the end. He says, risk it, go for it. And he gets up for 3 minutes, and then it explodes. There's a picture of him in the book with a pink balloon in his crotch. It's a birthday party, and Tallulah Riley, his then wife, had hired a knife thrower. So he's like this. The pink balloon is here, and the knife thrower is blindfolded. There's no upside to that risk. And if you think about it, but I recommend you don't think about it, there is a downside to that risk. He is addicted to risk, as Peter Thiel says, and it is problematic. However, it's also why Boeing was given the contract to get astronauts and cargo to the space station the same time that Musk was. He's done it now 48 times. Boeing hasn't yet done a test flight.
So the question is the acceptable level first.
Right, and he said we used to be a nation of risk takers. Whether you came here on the Mayflower or you came across the Rio Grande or from Eastern Europe, somebody in your family took a lot of risk.
Right.
And he said about 20 years ago, we became a nation with more referees and regulators than risk takers.
Yeah.
And by the way, that's why he moved from California to Texas.
Okay, so I'm the last person, maybe the last person in line. I brought my own copy of the Elon Musk biography, and I brought my own pen. I hope that I'm going to be able to ask Walter a few questions. So this. All right, Walter Isaacson. I waited until the end because I wanted to know if I could ask you 3 questions.
Fast.
Fast? Okay. My first question is, do you and Elon still talk regularly?
Yeah.
After being his shadow for 2 years?
We talk some, yeah. I'll see him on this trip.
Would you consider him a friend?
No. I'm his biographer, not his pal.
Right. Who should be cast to play Elon in the film?
Benedict Cumberbatch.
Oh, that was quick.
All right. Thank you so much.
All right, thank you. Don't forget your book. Oh, yeah. So what's my personal opinion of the book? Well, it definitely gave me insight and better perspective on Elon, including the fact that he's human, just like the rest of us. I think it's easy to lose sight of that when you look at his ambitions and everything he's doing on a global scale. We can't forget that he's also human. Well, some people suspect he's an alien trying to get back to Mars, but I do think he's human. I also feel like if he were my boss, I would have been fired yesterday. But in all seriousness, it sounds like he really has a personality to get you-know-what done, And that's definitely not my personality, but it works for him. And look at all of the success that he's had, having sort of a robot-like demeanor at times. I'm looking forward to reading some of Walter's other books because this book was so good. And I really want to thank Elon for giving us this access to his life. The fact that he didn't look over the book or have any say in how the book was written is huge. And I think that it's really great that we were able to see the good, the bad, the raw, the ugly moments, all of it, because it makes it very genuine and authentic. I also really respect the inner circle that Elon has and, for example, his family, who really keep him on track during times of stress and hardship. I was fortunate enough to meet and interview May Musk and Kimball Musk on the roof of Margaritaville during the first launch. They are wonderfully nice people, but it's clear in the book that they really do care about Elon and that their family unit is strong, minus Elon's father, of course. Now, if you've watched my channel for more than 5 minutes, it's not hard to tell that I am an Elon Musk supporter, but I hope that more people who may be on the fence about Elon can read this book because I think it gives great insight into what it must be like to be one of the most powerful, rich people in the world, and I'm sure it's not an easy road, but I'm really thankful for everything Elon has sacrificed, his money, his time, his effort. You have to realize that he could rest on his laurels and not be doing any of this, but he really does believe in humanity. And it's just exciting to see what his vision is and see it kind of unfold right in front of us. We just had the second launch of Starship, and that's just one facet of what he's doing. If you think about FSD, Robotaxi, if you think about Neuralink, the list goes on and on and on. And so I'm really thankful that we have a person like Elon Musk and that we were able to capture his life while he was still alive. Of course, there's news articles and headlines that talk about who he is and what's going on with his actions relating to business, but I think this is a really important, intimate look at his life that will serve as a great understanding of Elon Musk throughout time. So hopefully you enjoyed this video. If you did, please make sure to give it a thumbs up. Please make sure to subscribe to Ellie in Space so you don't miss any future videos. Thank you so much to my supporters. I'm a full-time journalist, aka YouTube creator, because of you guys, and I really appreciate it. I still can't believe that I'm able to do this, and so your support of my work is everything.